to welcome Sioned here today. We're absolutely thrilled, as I say, to welcome you here, having travelled all the way down from Bala to be with us and going back straight away afterwards. So, Sioned has kindly agreed to give a recital and to talk about the history of the Welsh harp, which we're all very much looking forward to hearing about. Sioned has many years of experience teaching music and as artistic director of the William Matthias Music Centre in Carnarvon before turning freelance. And she's also well known as a performer, a composer, an arranger of music here in Wales and abroad. Her publications include not only course books of Welsh music, of which that is one sample, but also volumes of Welsh folk songs and a collection of plug-in carols called, and forgive my pronunciations, Sioned
Hosanna, yeah, with
right. So we very much look forward to hearing your talk, to learning about the triple harp, and to hearing the pieces which you have chosen. So let's welcome Sioned.
Well, hello everybody, and thank you for the invite to Abbati. Come here. I brought Arfon, my husband, with me. We'll have some muscle in taking care of the transportation of the harp. So my talk today, what I told Angela, was the harp in Wales and or the Welsh harp. Are the two terms that I mentioned the same thing? Similar or supposed to be contradictory? So let's have a think about, without getting myself into a quagmire, in Abbati come here like this. The two terms, of course, are indeed similar, but the Welsh harp, rather than the harp in Wales, the Welsh harp is this triple harp, this beautiful creature standing patiently beside me. Therefore, just one component, albeit most important, in the history of the harp in Wales is the triple harp. I should say something about the harp, I think, here. It is a model on the Lady Elizabeth triple harp that's in Sioned, the Welsh Museum down in Cardiff. And it's modelled on that, but obviously it's very, very recent. And it was made, I had an older triple harp, but I had a rather important birthday coming up, and I decided, with my husband putting a deposit down for me, I decided to invest in a new triple harp, very light as they were in the olden days, because they were transported on a horse usually. Okay, so this was made by a man called Tim Hampson down in Plymouth in Devon, and it's a tragedy that not many triple harpists, well indeed not one really, are left in Wales at time present, although some are learning or some are being mentored to be triple harp makers. So, without seeming to be a teacher, hands up, who has seen a triple harp before? Hopefully nobody. Well done. And somebody told me that there is one in Llandrindod, in the museum there. Now then, triple harp because harps have always been about the chromatic element. That is very important in a harp. What does that mean? Well, it means that you're able to go to different keys and so on. The pedal harp, which came after the triple harp, of course. The pedal harp changes key with the pedals. The little clarshachts, the smaller harps, they change the notes with the flicks. But the triple harp, the chromatic notes are all there. Now then, the two outer rows of notes are exactly the same. So if I played like this, I would have the two outer are exactly the same. And then you have the inner row, the rhes ganol, the middle row, we say in Welsh. And the inner row, or the middle row, there are the chromatic notes, which mean the black notes of the organ or the piano, if you like. So that's how I go into different keys. How long does it take me to tune? Somebody asked me the other day. Well, that's another thing. A very long time. There are in all about, 100 strings to the harp. So, yeah. What about the first mentions of the harp in Wales, and where are they to be found? Manuscripts? Paintings, perhaps? Well, probably the first appearances or affirmations that there was indeed a strung instrument placed and played on the knee, similar to those played throughout Europe at the time were as follows. There is evidence of this type of instrument in stone carving, dating back to the 14th century in the cathedral in Tyddewi, St David's. Also in a stained glass window in the church in Gresford, near Wrexham, dating back to 1506. And the most quirky possible in Plas Dinefwr, near Llandeilo, where there are carvings on a certain bed there belonging to Sir Rhys ap Thomas. These carvings depict Sir Rhys getting ready for battle, and there is evidence of this role also in the history of King Brian Boru in Ireland. All this, his so-called harp in Trinity College, Dublin, may be completely false, because he might not have played the harp at all. We don't know. But the harp obviously had more than one function, although whether this elegant and softly spoken instrument would have been heard amongst any war whoops is another matter. So we have evidence at least of the lap harp, the bardic harp, and also the horsehair harp made out of horsehair, sometimes with what is called braes, gwrachiod in Welsh, like little quills almost, that gave some buzz to the instruments. There is some evidence of the first compositions for a type of harp, probably a horsehair harp, in the manuscripts of a man called Robert ap Hugh, who lived exactly 100 years before Bach and Handel and the classical composers of the Baroque period, to try and put him in context. And this is the earliest collections of music written specifically for the harp in all of Europe. Robert ap Hugh manuscript. This was certainly not notation as we know it today, but a collection of symbols gradually evolving throughout the composition and the different pieces in the manuscripts, prompting many scholars to try and decipher these graphics. I can only go from interpretations such as the ones by Peter Greenhill maybe, or Paul Dooley in Ireland. But it may have sounded a bit like the one I'm going to play. By the way, I think Angela has printed a list of what I'm playing. So this is the first piece on your list, called the Robert ap Hugh, and it's called Cainc David Procwyd, David the Prophet. Now then, it's rather short, and it's rather monotonous really. So what I've done, I've jumped ahead 100 years to the time that the Baroque composers, and you will hear a piece called Marged Fwyn Ferch Ifan. Lovely Margaret, shall we say, daughter of Ifan. Now then, this lady, and there's some notes in the programme, she lived about 100 years, or the person who had composed this piece. But what I want you to do is to listen for the difference between the rather harsh sound of the first piece and the development into trills and so on in the second piece. I'll link them together this afternoon, to try also to show on this instrument the way that music in general had moved forward, and that these chromatic notes I was talking about pretty well needed to be, in those in the pieces heard and also in the pieces composed. So there needed to be some kind of chromatic notes available for these kind of pieces. Before that, of course, there were no chromatic notes. So put it in context again, J.S. Bach devised the tempered music, the well-tempered clavier. He said, so he wrote preludes and fugues in every single key that there was. So there needed to be a chromatic instrument to play these. Okay then, so the Robert ap Hugh manuscript, the Cainc David Procwyd, and then the Marged Fwyn Ferch Ifan. Thank you. pieces. Thank you. So rather early type music. We'll move on, and the Margaret Hwyn Verhivan second piece was found by a colleague of mine in the Bangor University Music Archives. We'll move on. In the following centuries, sponsorship and patronage was an essential part of the harpist's life, and the same with the bards and the musicians. When this ceased, or at least diminished, during the realm of the Tudors, many a harpist decided to try and make a living in London, with some becoming royal harpists. But harp playing back in Wales also seemed to be alive as ever, with one particular mansion in Ynys Môn or Anglesey mentioning 13 visiting harpists in as little as 2 months in 1594. Then, in the consecutive centuries, the demand and indeed an industry of harp making in places such as Llanrwst, Tom Lloyd from the very north of Powys in Llangynnog, and Bassett Jones in Cardiff showed that playing the harp was as popular as ever in Wales. We have lovely, lovely melodies from this period too. David, the Garreg Wen, which you might know, David of the White Rock, translated. The Garreg Wen, not far from Porthmadog, wrote one of the loveliest melodies, allegedly, and I say that allegedly, on his deathbed in 1741. So we move on again, being only 29 when he died. We can only wonder what kind of harp he was playing, because the tune is quite chromatic, to say the least. Now then, I'm going to play David the Garreg Wen in its entirety, and then with 2 variations showing the triple harp on best, at its best. melody. Okay, the triple harp is thought to have come to Wales in the realm of Charles I in England around 1630, probably from Italy. The first triple harp made in Wales was produced towards the end of the 17th century by Elis Sion Shamas from Llanbachrep, near Dolgellau. In the 18th century, blind John Parry from Rhiwabon and Edward Jones from Llanderfel, village from where we live at the moment, were also well known in the palaces in London and with royalty. But not only the harp was used in the circles of aristocracy and royalty. We must not forget the collection of tunes by Iolo Morgannwg, or Edward Williams, to give him his name, who was born in 1749. Now then, context again, a year before Bach and Handel Bach died. About the same time, his famous skirmishes, shall we say, with Edward Jones, Bard the Brenin, the King's Bard, were quite well known. Also, not far from here, in Drenewydd, Newtown, there lived a man called Telynor Cymru, or John Roberts. His mother, the granddaughter of Abraham Wood, of Romani descendancy. His family kept the spirit of the triple harp alive by entertaining nobility and commoners likewise. There is evidence that playing this instrument was more popular in the north than South Wales at first, before the keen support of, for instance, Augusta Hall, also known as Arglwyddes or the Baroness of Llanofer in the 19th century. But back to Iolo Morgannwg or Edward Williams. A few notes on your sheet. A great collector of tunes. One that I was quite fascinated by was Clychau Morgannwg, the harps of Morgannwg. Usually in this time, most of the tunes were in 4/4, common time, 3/4, if they were a saraband, as you heard. This tune is in a 5 in the bar meter, which is very, well, not very usual, should we say, very unusual. At that time, at least, I don't think that, the Baroque masters would have 5 in the bar. It's maybe noted down in error, we don't know, but I like the quirkiness of this tune called Clychau Morgannwg, the bells of Morgannwg, or Glamorgan, if you like. And here it is, and my friend Robin Hugh Bowen, he is also a triple harpist and a mentor for me anyway in the early days, and this is his variation on Clychau Morgannwg. that, that shows the triple harp at its very best. And now, after that popularity, maybe that we come to this crucial period in the history of the harp. The triple harp, yes, became popular in Wales, but she was also played throughout Europe. We know, for instance, that George Friedrich Handel wrote his harp concerto, obviously, for the triple. She was much lighter and more transportable and easy to carry around. And of course, fully chromatic. But then, the pedal harp came to be, most likely, from France. The double action pedal system, that meant up and down, not the triple one, that was to come, but the double action at the beginning, was first patented in London by Sebastian Erard in 1801. So we move forward. Two things contributed towards a real threat to the triple harp, in my opinion anyway. The snobbery, first of all, by some such as John Thomas Pencerdd Gwalia, maybe because of the triple's harp's association with the gypsies. And second, the hostility, even animosity, by the Methodists at the time towards any instruments that was played in taverns. Now then, I have so many quotes here, but one in particular stands out. Now then, my father was the minister of Capel Tegid in Bala. Outside the chapel is a statue of Thomas Charles, founder of the Bible Society when Mary Jones walked, probably barefoot, for 26 miles from Llanfihangel y Pennant. His, Thomas Charles's determination to exterminate the harp was almost an obsession. But so was singing and dancing, probably as well. Listen to an observation of his when talking about the parish of Penllyn around Bala. No harps, he says, but the golden harps, of which St. John speaks, have been played on in this neighbourhood for some months past. The craft is not only in danger, but entirely destroyed and abolished. The little stone has broken in pieces and wholly destroyed these ensnaring hindrances. That is from Thomas Charles. Now then, and that was a letter composed by Thomas Charles at the end of the 18th century. Unfortunately for harpists, Charles was an extremely likeable and charismatic man. But maybe the truth is much more complex. The pedal harp and the triple harp coexisted side by side, as seen when again mentioning John Roberts, Tylynod Cymru, the harpist of Wales. There is a drawing of him and his family entertaining Queen Victoria in Palais Hall near Llanderfel, where we live, not the Palais Hall in the village of Llanderfel, in 1889. In the drawing of John Roberts and his entourage, in the drawing there are 5 pedal harps and 4 triples. So they did coexist side by side. Depends on who taught them, maybe, who were their teachers. We don't know. But later on, and this was the threat of the very existence of the instrument, the triple harp in the 20th century was, had more or less died out. The repertoire also shifted from the folk to the classical. until a lady called Nancy Richards from Penabonsfawr decided to learn scores of folk tunes on the triple harp, having in turn maybe learned them from the Romani or gypsies that often stayed locally. She then in turn passed the craft on to Dafydd and Gwyndaf Roberts of the band Arlog, the folk band in Welsh. Dafydd's son also plays the triple harp. Nancy Richards also played the classical harp. Llior Hydderch is one of Nancy Richards' pupils. Robin Hugh Bowen, on the other hand, the triple harpist, gained much knowledge from Eldra Roberts, again a descendant of the Romani, Eldra Jarman, when she married. So slowly but surely the tide began to turn. In the National Eisteddfod in Meifod in 2015, I took on the daunting task of sending an appeal to assemble as many triple harps as possible, and triple harpists obviously. Over 30 of us turned up, and that was amazing, to be honest. In 2019, the Triple Harp Society was formed. One sign of the instrument being very alive and kicking these days is the variety of repertoire and styles on the triple. I play a range of music, from the very traditional, simple tunes to looping and jazzy rhythms on the instrument. Some prefer to link the harp to a repertoire and style from a previous age to keep and guard the tradition, which is also understandable. Others, such as Cerys Havana, I'm naming her this afternoon, from Machynlleth, not far away, has devised a style that has taken her all over the world, to jazz, avant-garde and to minimalistic compositions, and has completed, I think, just completed a tour of Europe. I collaborated last year with an oud player, a player that plays the oud, a Palestinian or an Arabic instrument, and performed in the National Eisteddfod. And may this gorgeous lady go from strength to strength. So, in order to show you some variety at the end of this talk, where are we? I have chosen 3 pieces that show the diversity, yes, show different techniques on the triple harp. The first one you'll see in your programs is called Beth yw'r haf I mi? What is summer to me when I have lost my love, and so on. Now then, there is some history associated with this melody, and you'll be able to read it. I won't go through it now. Secondly, I'm going to play a piece called Grandmother's Dance, or My Grandma's Dance, an Arabic tune which I played with Salih Hassan, originally from Jordan. His family live in Gaza, under atrocious circumstances. The rest of the family, I believe, live in Beirut. One is a doctor in Beirut. He now lives in Cardiff, as well as Salih, and is answering the telephone in exchanges. So the family have just been, uprooted. And then, last of all, I'm going to play Lisa Lan. Lisa Lan is a well-known folk tune, and one of our loveliest. So those 3 then, to finish off this fitting a gallon into a pint pot, shall we say. Okay, so first of all, Beth yw'r haf I mi? So there are many technical issues in this next one. I'm just crossing my fingers and my toes and my everything that it'll, that this instrument, little thing, pedal thing beside me will work. So here is the grandmother's dance from Arabia. I'm going to finish with Lisa Lam, Fair Lisa, beautiful Lisa. You will see in your programmes that I, at least, see a connection between this folk song in Wales and she moved through the fair, an Irish folk song. And that's because it's in a certain mode. Now we go back again before these chromatics became usual in music, in Western music at least, that the majority of music was written, folk songs especially, were written in modes, different kinds of scales which employed only the white notes of the piano. And this is in what is called the Mixolydian mode. So I'm able to play only on the white notes, say me going into the strings and creating a buzz and everything. So here we go. Lisa Lamb. If somebody would like to ask one, or you're welcome to come here and try this beautiful instrument if you'd like to have a go afterwards, as it were. I thank you so much for your appreciation. I thank Angela, especially her correspondence and so on has been really indispensable, and I'm enjoying myself in your company. I've never been here before. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you very much. Julian's just going to say a few words.
Say a few words of thanks to Sioned this afternoon. For me, it's a great pleasure because this is the second time in just over a fortnight I've had the pleasure of a harp in concert. A couple of weeks ago we were at a performance by the Music of the Swan in Hereford, a portrayal in words and music of Laurie Lee's writings. And the music was provided by 4 string players, a double bass, and a harpist.
Oh wow, well done.
just seeing that performance made me realise what a wonderful instrument it is and how very versatile it is, which is what we have seen from Charlotte this afternoon.
Yes.
I wonder how you can do it. So it gives me great pleasure to offer our thanks to Sioned for this afternoon. Diolch yn fawr, Jan.
Diolch yn fawr, Julian. Anybody? Yes.
Is there a repertoire for multiple harps? Harp trios or harp quartets, or anything of that kind?
In the Baroque period, there was what is called the continuo. And the continuo meant any bass instrument, and usually any instrument that could play chords. And those two instruments, usually, it could be an organ in church, it could be a harpsichord in noble houses, but very often the harp was being played as a continuo. That meant that the player had some indication of what the chords were, and then he improvised. So that was the first indication of being involved in a trio. Later on, not many harps were played in trios, no. There are, because again of classical tradition, and not until the pedal harp came into being after the Baroque now, that the Romantic composers composed, such as people like Debussy, and so composed for the harp. In particular, Dussek, another one. Because of this transition, the classical period in music is almost forgotten about entirely. We don't have many harp pieces by Mozart, Handel, Haydn, Beethoven, Schubert and so on. And then when we came to the Romantics again, there is much repertoire for the harp. That means that they are in trios and small ensembles as well. Mendelssohn especially wrote some music for the harp. Anybody else? I think, if I can answer. Yeah?
Yes, you mentioned improvisation there. When exactly did the tradition of Penillion come in? I knew that involves the voice. But when exactly did that come into the picture?
I am very glad that my husband is here because he knows more than me about Penillion singing. He is a Penillion singer.
Oh.
Armand, would you like to comment?
Well,
come here. Maybe you'll sing some.
No, I won't sing. That goes back a very, very long time.
So
the Celtic period, apparently. The tradition of singing to harp accompaniment. And that sort of developed over the centuries. And it's only, if you listen to what is called cerdd dance today, that's what it's called, Penillion singing. Penillion singing and cerdd dance means the same thing, really. But when you say canu Penillion, it has a sort of old-fashioned connotation, the old way of singing cerdd dance. So before the 20th century, Penillion singing was only sung by one person at a time. So if you listen to Eisteddfodau today, you hear duets, trios, quartets, small parties, even huge choirs of 80 people. So cerdd dance during the 20th century developed in that way, and I think has become more similar to the classical choral tradition than what it was. It was a sort of a folk tradition only in the past, and it's changed a lot.
Improvisation has been very important for the harp because you heard the very first piece by the Robert ap Hugh, found in the Robert ap Hugh manuscript. We can only wonder, how this must have sounded because it's all in tablature form, it's in looks like hieroglyphics anyway, and we can only interpret it as people that know more than me can lead me to decipher or to analyse this in my own way. So yes, this is important part of you know, analysis really of the Welsh repertoire. If you look at it, it's in many variations form. And that was we talked about the classical period, maybe that was one of the many forms that was in the classical period, many variations, and they could improvise to their heart's content, really.
Well, it's been wonderful to hear about all the different styles of the music that you were talking about today, particularly here in Abercwmbir, which is so very much in the heart of Bangladesh and in Wales. But we so often are so concerned with obviously our history and our archaeology, so it's been wonderful to hear about the other forms of culture as well here today.
Thank